What if the beings pulling the strings behind every government, every institution, every crisis we face aren't even human? I'm going to share something with you today that most people will dismiss outright. But before you click away, ask yourself, why do ancient cultures, separated by oceans, all depict the same crested reptilian figures as gods? Why do credible military personnel, scientists, and researchers keep telling nearly identical stories about encounters with non-human intelligences? For decades, I've investigated a subject that sits at the intersection of mythology, suppressed history, and modern eyewitness testimony. The reptilian presence on Earth isn't just folklore or science fiction. It's a pattern woven through every major civilization, appearing in religious texts, government documents, and whispered conversations with people who have clearance levels most of us will never see. But let me be clear from the start. I haven't personally come face to face with one of these entities, but I've spent years speaking with astronauts, military insiders, archaeologists, and intelligence operatives who have, and when you hear the same details from people who have never met each other, who have nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking out, you start to recognize a truth that's been hidden in plain sight. If it sounds impossible, it's probably closer to truth than comfort. The first obstacle we face isn't the phenomenon itself. It's the gatekeepers of acceptable knowledge. Our scientific institutions have become priesthoods, not laboratories. A researcher's career depends entirely on conforming to approved narratives, on kissing the right rings, on never questioning the foundational myths of their funding sources. When a scientist discovers something that contradicts the official story, they face a choice: bury it or lose everything. I've watched this pattern repeat across every field. In archaeology, groundbreaking finds get dismissed or hidden if they don't fit the timeline we've been taught. In physics, phenomena that challenge materialist assumptions are labeled pseudoscience before any honest investigation occurs. The moment you step outside the approved boundaries, you're not just wrong, you're dangerous. This matters because the reptilian question touches the deepest nerve of institutional control. If non-human intelligences have been here longer than recorded history, if they've shaped our religions and governments, if they've interbred with human bloodlines to create ruling dynasties, then everything we've been taught about human sovereignty is a comforting fairy tale. Let me share some of the accounts I've personally documented. A wealthy businessman from Las Vegas, someone who owns casinos, not someone prone to fantasy, contacted me after hearing one of my radio interviews. He told me about a camping trip in Colorado with his entire company, 8 families, all from the same church community. They were hiking in a remote valley when they spotted a ritual taking place below them, a circle of people chanting, swaying, with a robed figure in the center. Then something materialized inside that circle, something far larger than human, standing at least 7 feet tall. It pointed directly at them on the ridge. Before they could retreat, one of these beings appeared instantly behind them. Not walked up, appeared. He described it in detail: towering, muscular, reptilian features, with eyes that seemed to pierce straight through their thoughts. Every person in the group, including the children, became completely paralyzed. They could breathe, but nothing else. The entity communicated telepathically: "I'm allowing you to leave. Don't interrupt us again." Then it vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. The moment it left, the paralysis broke, and 8 grown men ran back to their vehicles with screaming families in tow. This wasn't one person having a breakdown. This was multiple professional adults, their spouses, their children, all experiencing the same impossible event. Another case involved a woman whose father worked in what she called Project Retrieval for the Air Force, the unit that responds anywhere on Earth when UFO incidents occur. She grew up moving from base to base, always under guard, never allowed to be alone. Her father finally explained why these entities had warned him directly that if the military kept interfering in their operations, they would visit his family. One night, when she convinced her parents to let her stay home alone for the first time, a reptilian being stepped out of her bedroom closet. She described it as having to duck under the door frame, then rising to almost touch the ceiling. It began gliding toward her without walking. She barely escaped through a bathroom window, but not before the thing clawed deep gouges into the door while making guttural animal sounds. The evidence was physical. The terror was shared by everyone who responded to her screams. and her father confirmed this is exactly what they promised would happen. Now, why would I believe these accounts? Because they fit a pattern that extends back thousands of years. The ancient Sumerians described the Anunnaki, those who from heaven came as beings with scaly skin, who created humans as a labor force. In Hebrew tradition, the word Elohim used in Genesis is grammatically plural and feminine. Jewish mystical texts describe these creator beings as having horny skin that reflected light. The Gnostic Christians wrote that when Adam and Eve gained knowledge, they saw their creators and loathed them, for they were beastly in form, not metaphorical beasts, physically non-human entities. Across every continent, we find the same motif, a crested or ridged head. Look at dinosaur fossils and you'll see this feature is natural to many reptilian species. Then look at the statues, the carvings, the ceremonial headdresses from cultures that never contacted each other. The Aztecs, the Egyptians, the Hindus, the Romans, the Tibetan monks, the Mohawk tribes, all displaying this exact same cranial ridge as a symbol of divine authority or connection to the gods. Hollywood knows this. Steven Spielberg openly stated he doesn't make films to entertain, he makes them to comment on critical subjects the public needs to understand. He produced a 19-hour television series called Taken about alien abduction, based heavily on the research of Dr. Carla Turner, who documented government cooperation with non-human entities. Shortly after she began exposing those connections publicly, she died under suspicious circumstances. The film V showed reptilians disguised as beautiful, advanced humans promising a new world order, then revealed as predators wearing human skin. These aren't random creative choices. They're disclosure wrapped in fiction, because direct revelation would shatter the control systems our society depends on. I'm convinced the Philadelphia experiment in the 1940s tore a hole in whatever energetic barrier was protecting Earth from unrestricted interdimensional access. Physicist Tom Bearden, someone I've known for years, refused to discuss it even in private company among trusted researchers. His exact words when I asked, "I cannot talk about that subject. Drop it." That non-answer told me everything. After that experiment, UFO activity exploded. The Bermuda Triangle phenomenon intensified, and on the opposite side of the planet, in the Devil's Triangle near Japan, identical disappearances and time distortions began occurring. Einstein theorized these were connected as entry vortexes. What if he was right? We're told these are isolated mysteries, paranormal curiosities that don't fit together. But what if they're symptoms of a single truth? Earth is, and has always been, managed by a non-human intelligence that occasionally allows us to glimpse the edges of their operations. The ruling bloodlines, the families that control banking, politics, energy, information, have always been described in esoteric texts as different from common humans. Not metaphorically different. Genetically, neurologically, fundamentally other. They intermarry within closed circles. They perform rituals the public never sees. They display behaviors that seem almost scripted by something that doesn't quite understand human emotion. Remember when Prince Charles was asked an uncomfortable question during a televised interview, and he didn't respond with words? He hissed like a serpent repeatedly, eyes narrowed, in front of cameras. That clip aired on mainstream talk shows because people couldn't explain what they'd witnessed. Was it a tic, a joke, or a moment when the mask slipped? I believe our world is not governed by the politicians we see. They're middle managers at best. The real powers don't have Wikipedia pages or give speeches. The true authority operates through institutions like the Nazi International, not a historical footnote, but an ongoing network of elite bankers and industrialists meeting in secrecy across Argentina, Austria, Switzerland, locations most people will never find on a map. Why would they need secrecy if they're just human leaders making human decisions? Because they're not making those decisions, they're receiving them. Every major religion warns us about this. The Christian Bible says the whole world lies in the power of the wicked one, not a human dictator, but a non-human principality. Ancient Vedic texts describe Nagas, serpent beings, who ruled from underground kingdoms and occasionally took human form. The Aboriginal Australians speak of the rainbow serpent as the creator and destroyer. These aren't coincidental myths. their cultural memories. Astrology, when understood correctly, not the watered-down horoscopes in newspapers, is a technology these beings use to time their operations according to cosmic cycles. Nostradamus cracked that code. He wasn't guessing about future events, he was reading a schedule that was already written in celestial mechanics. Here's where this gets personal. For every single person watching, we are living through the collapse they've engineered. Western civilization is imploding by design. The economic systems, the governmental structures, the educational institutions, the religious hierarchies, all of it is crumbling simultaneously because it was built on sand, and the storm has been scheduled to arrive. You feel it. Everyone feels it. Something massive and dark is approaching, and we're collectively powerless because we lack the knowledge of how these systems actually function. We've been deliberately kept ignorant, distracted by entertainment and tribal conflicts, while the architecture of control was assembled around us. The human population has exploded to unsustainable numbers, most struggling just to survive, unable to organize or resist because we don't even agree on what's real anymore. That's not an accident. That's livestock management. I've been researching this for over 50 years, and I'm telling you plainly, we are not alone. We have never been alone, and the forces that share this planet with us do not have our best interests at heart. They may have created us as the ancient texts insist, but creation doesn't imply benevolence. We may be a resource, an experiment, or simply something they enjoy controlling. At 76 years old, I don't care who I offend with these conclusions. The evidence is overwhelming once you allow yourself to look at it honestly. Government insiders have told me directly about underground facilities where joint operations occur between military personnel and non-human biologics. Astronauts have shared stories they'd never repeat on camera. Scientists have shown me data that will never appear in peer-reviewed journals because it would end their careers instantly. The question isn't whether this is happening. The question is what we do with the knowledge that we're not the apex intelligence on our own planet. Some of these entities can mimic us perfectly. In nature, we see insects that look like leaves, creatures that blend into bark, fish that camouflage as rocks. If a non-human intelligence wanted to move among us undetected, do you think they'd lack the capability? They created us in their image according to every ancient source. Looking human wouldn't be a disguise for them, it would be reverting to their original form. We have technology now that can project images directly into the human brain, making you see things that aren't physically present. If our primitive science can do that, what can an intelligence thousands or millions of years ahead of us accomplish? They could walk among us wearing any face they choose. They could occupy positions of power in every government. They could steer wars, economic collapses, and social movements without us ever seeing their hand. This is why disclosure will never come from official channels. The institutions are compromised. The media is controlled. The academic gatekeepers will ridicule and suppress. If you're waiting for CNN or the White House to confirm this, you'll be waiting until the moment when it no longer matters because the agenda is complete. But we're not entirely helpless. Knowledge is the first step toward autonomy. The moment you understand you're in a cage, you can start looking for the door. The moment you recognize the control mechanisms, you can begin to withdraw your consent and energy from them. I'm asking you to investigate this yourself. Don't take my word for it. Research Dr. Carla Turner's work before it gets scrubbed entirely. Study the ancient texts. Not through the sanitized versions approved by religious authorities, but the original translations that scholars keep locked away. Look at the art, the symbols, the recurring patterns across civilizations that supposedly never communicated, and pay attention to your own experiences. How many people do you know who've seen things they can't explain? Moments where reality seemed to crack? Encounters with beings that didn't fit any category? These aren't glitches in perception, they're glimpses through the veil. The script says humanity is supposed to stay asleep until the final act. But more people are waking up every day, comparing notes, realizing we've been fed a cover story. That terrifies the control structure because their power depends entirely on our ignorance and compliance. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Share this information. Talk about it. Stop being afraid of sounding crazy, because crazy is just a weapon they use to keep you silent. Silence is consent to your own enslavement. Hit that like button if this resonates with you, and make sure you're subscribed to Winds of Thought, because we're going to keep pulling back the curtain no matter how uncomfortable the view gets. Drop a comment below. What's your personal experience with the unexplainable? Let's build a record they can't erase. The age of blind belief is ending. The age of eyes wide open awareness is beginning. And those who've controlled us from the shadows for millennia are about to discover that once humans remember who we really are, their power evaporates. The truth is coming, not from saviors or disclosure events, from us, from conversations like this one, from refusal to stay silent. The reptilian presence, the hidden bloodlines, the manufactured collapse, it all falls apart the moment we see it clearly and refuse to play along. Stay awake, stay curious, and remember the fact that they've worked so hard to keep this hidden tells you exactly how much power it holds.